Hello out to all you wonderful people. This is Andre the Game Idea Guy. Thank you once again for lending me your time and your ear listening into another Why You Know game discussion. And this time I'm going to be talking about Friday the 13th. But not the more recent iteration that has been released. I'm talking about the old school game that came out back on the NES. And I do not know if there are any other variants of that game. I do know about the NES version, so that's the one I have recollection of, the one that I can talk to you about, the one that I know about. Now, that game was very frustrating to a lot of people and pretty much unfair in a lot of ways as well. Because unless you had some sort of guide to tell you what to do, that game was a piece of work. Because you would think that there was actual RNG in that game, come to find out there's not. It's just that you have to know where everything is and how to get it and what you need to do in order to be able to capitalize on getting it. But that took a lot of time and work and study for somebody to figure out. But the base of the game would actually work if it was modernized. Now, it's not like there aren't a lot of people that like Dead by Daylight, myself being one of them. So, if we did a remake of this particular game where you had the 6 camp counselors and you also had Jason, and then you had different monsters cropping up attacking you at different points, the game could actually be really cool and interesting. Now, there would be need for rebalancing a lot of different things. For one, 3 of the characters have the exact same stats. They have literally the exact same stats, and they are like horrible to play with. One character barely has better stats by having better speed, and then there's the other 2 that are just overall better than everyone else, which sucks. Complete butthole for that game. Now, what I would do is rebalance everybody's stats so that each character has their own advantage. One that the other characters don't. Like maybe one character is a little bit more durable than everybody else. One character is specifically faster than everyone else. One character specifically can jump higher than everyone else. One character specifically has better aim than everyone else with their weapons. There's a lot of things that could be adjusted for that. And I change it to have actual RNG and remove the necessity to jump in order to make items appear. I would make the RNG actually work in the game. Whereas, as it is currently in the NES game, each character has a certain number of kills they have to get before they can get the lighter. And then after that, you have a certain amount of locations to find different items. And if you do upgrade to an item and you accidentally get that downgrade, you're screwed. But at the same time, there aren't a whole lot of the upgrade available, which bugs the hell out of me. I would keep the format of the game mostly the same, like the physical format of the game, like the map and how the map operates, the different locations in the game. All of that stuff could stay the same. The fact that you can fight Jason's dead mother, I would keep all of that in the game. The 2 additions I would make, outside of what I've already talked about, is having the game be multiplayer. And multiplayer, local, and online. So 4 local, 6 local on the Switch, or 6 local on PC if you have enough controllers and enough ports. But 4 local on Xbox and PSN or PlayStation, and then 6 online, no matter what, as well as making it cross-platform playable. I would also make it so that you can get the upgrades by defeating the regular enemies outside of the game's final weapon, in which you do have to beat Jason's mother to get. Like, you have to beat her to get the final weapon, as well as the sweater upgrade that protects your character. You would have to beat her in order to get that. I would make it so that the health items appear again through RNG, so that you can actually get enough health in order to face Jason. Because that game, the way he hits, no matter what level, what weapon he has, he always does the same amount of damage. Also, I would change that. And here's how I would change it. So, when he's fighting barefisted, he does the lowest amount of damage to your health. And then you could have him pick up like a log or a stick or something, and he could use that as a weapon. Then you could have him pick up the axe and then the machete. And at the end of that, he could also have a different weapon that does even more damage. And here's how he would upgrade to his different weapons. Now, instead of having to light all the lanterns to get a flashlight, or all the fireplaces to get a flashlight, that can be something that you get by killing enough enemies. Now, this is where I would take the approach from the original game, where each character has a certain number of enemies they have to kill in order to get that particular item. That would be the only item that would apply to. But you could get it from killing enemies. Now, lighting the torches would weaken Jason's physical defense. So the more of them that are lit, the weaker he is physically, but the more frantic and more dangerous he becomes. So the more damage you can do to him, the higher he upgrades himself in order to do damage to you. But I would also include that once his health gets to a certain point, like in the original, he becomes even more frantic and harder to defeat, and just escalated by the days in the game. So say, for instance, on day one, if you fight Jason and will his health down without lighting any torches, by the time he gets down to 25% health, he's going to operate as if you lit all of the torches. So there's no way to get around it. But he won't take as much damage. So that's where the balancing thing comes in. It's up to you if you want to take that risk, because then you have a stone wall that you have to try to avoid and fight through. I would also remove that one part in the game where Jason can attack you, but you have very few options to actually attack him. Like, he can hit you and disappear when he's in the lake and you're in the boat, and you have no way to avoid him. You literally have no way to avoid him. So if you're down to your last bit of health, you're screwed. Which sucks. And is unfair. So I would entirely remove that. Now, if he's going to attack you while you're in the boat, I'd have him reach up and swipe at you, not slide across the screen and hit you. If he just reaches up out the water and swipes at you, you have an opportunity to stop and avoid the attack. And I think that makes more sense. But back in the day, they were just trying to make the game hard and make you, as the player, frantic, and I understand that. It's just not a proper balance for a game, and you can't say that. And back then, they knew that. I do have the luxury of hindsight to look at that and say, no, that's not a fair balance. I think I would make it be that there are more kids to save. Maybe just add another 5 to the amount, because I think it's 15 in the original. So make it 20. And Jason will kill them quickly if you are slow to get to him. So you do have to protect those kids. You cannot win the game with all of the kids dead. If he kills all of the children, it's instant game over. You start over. Another thing to think about. Jason does have like paths that he takes. Well, not paths. He has routes that he takes during the game. Each route, and I think he only has two, but both routes lead him back to the main area where the kids are stationed that he's trying to kill. Now, I would maybe make his routes a little bit smaller so that you have to encounter him more because you're going to have him be multiplayer. I think if you have 6 people playing, the routes will be shorter, whereas he will take a shorter route around to get to the kids to try to murder them. Like, he'll disappear from you and go after them. But each time you encounter him, he changes his route. Like, his route completely changes. But I would also give the ability for the player to be able to run from Jason. Not every time you come into contact with him do you have to fight him. Except for if his health is below 25%. Because again, he's frantic at that point. So he's trying to get rid of you by any means necessary. Which would make it far more scary for the person playing. Because like even in a 2D setting, it's unnerving to see the boss character chasing you down, throwing big metal blades at you while you're trying to run from them. And once he locks onto someone, he will pursue them. No matter where they go, no matter what building you enter, he will follow you into it. Now you have the option to run from him in those buildings, but he will still chase you. He will chase you down. So that at least if you're a player, you can run from him. And when he is on screen and you are fighting him, there will be far less enemies appearing. Now, there won't be no enemies appearing like an EES game, or they walk off. They'll still do the walk off when Jason's approaching because they need to be off screen before he shows up. But then from that point, you can run. Like, you can avoid him and take off running. Now, again, if he's not in frantic mode, he will not follow you into buildings. He will just leave you alone. But if he is frantic, yes, he's going to hunt you everywhere you go. And he can be frantic with no damage if all of the torches are lit, and he will be frantic with his most powerful weapon. So for day 1, his most powerful weapon would be the axe. For day 2, his most powerful weapon would be machete. And for day 3, I'd say give him the pitchfork, which I think is the final weapon that you can use. So that it escalates. And each item higher does more damage. Which should be, common sense. But I still have to say it anyway, just for the sake of discussion. Now, if you have multiple people playing and you're trying to take on Jason at the same time, you will do less damage to him with more players. You will do more damage to him with one player. Again, it's just for the game to be balanced out, and it makes more sense that way. Now, in a multiplayer game, everybody starts off in a different cabin. You do not start off together. And you don't start off in any of the cabins that have the fireplaces that need to be lit. Also, with that being said, when you enter a house, it would play more in a first-person adventure perspective, sort of like what Metroid does, just with no guns. And you just run around with your weapon throwing it. So think of, if anybody's old enough, and I'm dating myself with this, South Park on the N64. Think about how that moves, and that's how the game would move inside the houses. With the exception that it would play more, I guess you could say it would play more like the N64 game where you are utilizing the one analog to run around. And this is mostly because on the Switch, if you're playing with one single Joy-Con, you only have the one analog. So I have to account for that. So that would kind of be the control across the board to make it fair. But it's not like you really would have too much trouble because you're just turning yourself and running at the same time. Probably takes some time for people to get used to because everybody's used to dual stick. But it's not that difficult to do once you get yourself used to it and you get your mind set in for it. Because I don't think that having it be like exactly like what the NES version of the game is, where you're just pushing and moving the rooms like slides, that would, one, that would be annoying, and two, it would take too long. And three, that would make populating the inside of the houses annoying. Because then you have to move up, wait for an item to appear. Move up, wait for an item to appear. It's annoying. I would keep the notes and have the notes that pop up as hints in the game. I would have them be there. Just because it's one of those weird little things. It's like, who's leaving these notes? Just to leave people the question of who the hell's leaving these notes and why are they trying to help me? Just because it's just off-putting. And I know that most people would look at it suspiciously and be like, why should I listen to this? I'm going to do the opposite. I'm not going to go there. But those who remember the game will be like, oh yeah, that's where these items are. Let me go find them. I'm trying to think because I just ran through a lot of it. I think that with all that I've said and put into the game to be encompassed, that this would work pretty decently. I think a lot of people could get behind this and playing it in this format because again, it's basically just 2D Dead by Daylight, and with Jason specifically being the only boss monster in the game, but he gets stronger along the way and more frantic as you go on. So I think that works itself out, and I think that the balancing that I have come up with would make the game fair enough for people to be able to play it and enjoy it and see if you can all survive and take out Jason together. I think that would be pretty cool. And maybe even if you don't use the characters that were in the game, like the characters that were in the game from jump, maybe allow everybody to customize their own character and give them just like a stat total that they can use and spread out among the stats in ways that they think are important. Because that could also be pretty cool too. Or maybe start off with the base characters, and then once you beat the game, you unlock the ability to bring it to create your own in the scenario and see how you do with that. Yeah, I think that would be pretty cool. That would be a good way to go about it, and it could add replay value to the game. So yeah, that sounds like it works. If anybody knows what I'm talking about, or if anybody who's played the original has any ideas they'd like to add, please do. I am open to hearing them. But outside of this, I think I've covered enough of it. So, thank you guys very much for listening in. Keep your eyes and ears up for more stuff from me. And until the next time, enjoy your games. Peace out, everybody.